The first tense that we are going to handle is the tense that most people who learn English learn first, which is the present simple, or as the Dutch called it, the tegenwoordigheid. How do we form the present simple? The present simple is easy to form because how do we form the present simple? It's actually quite simple, because if one looks at the infinitive of the verb to walk, the way to use it in a sentence is to say, to remove the word to, I always walk to school. There is one thing to notice about the present simple. In the case of the third person, that is he, she, or it, the verb walk takes an S at the very end, so it becomes he always walks to school. Looking beneath here, we can see the verb to walk conjugated. I walk, you walk, he, she, or it walks, we walk, you walk, and they walk. All regular verbs in the English language take on this format. There are two exceptions to this rule. One of them is the verb to be. The verb to be is completely different. I am, you are, he, she, or it is, we are, you are, they are. It is not only the form of the verb that is different, but also how we construct questions and negative. In the case of the verb to have, rather than just adding an S at the end of the word have, it changes format and becomes has. Something to mention about the present simple is this S, which is a common mistake for Dutch speakers. A very useful trick to remember to add the S is the shit happens rule. This says that after she, he, and it, the verb takes an S at the end. We will now discuss the use of the present simple. A tense tells us something about the time in which something happens. Now, in the case of the present simple, we use it in the case that we do something regularly or if it is a habit. The word never and always are also included in this regularity. So I always go to school by bus, and I never go to school by bus. Tell me something about how often I do something. I wash my car every Friday also tells me about how often I do something. If it is a habit, you might see the word usually. I usually buy popcorn at the cinema. Another time to use the present simple is if something is a fact. Water boils at 100 degrees centigrade. Tomorrow it will boil at 100 degrees centigrade, and yesterday it boiled at 100 degrees centigrade. This kind of scientific fact usually uses the present simple. Something about questions and negatives in the present simple. All regular verbs in English need the help of the verb do when making questions and negatives in the present simple. So I walk to school becomes I don't walk to school. He walks to school becomes he doesn't walk to school. You can see the application of the should rule in the word does. In the question form, the same thing happens. I walk to school becomes do I walk to school? And he walks to school becomes does he walk to school? A very important note is that in the question form and in the negative, the S that was after the word walk now moves to the verb does in the does not and does in the question form. It must disappear from after the word walk in both cases. The verb to be is a little bit different. You are late is an example of a sentence using the verb to be. In the negative form, we simply add the word not. You're not late. In the case of he is late, it becomes he is not late, or in its shortened form, he isn't late. In the question form, what you do is you invert the position. So you are late becomes are you late, the verb comes first. In the case of he is late, the verb comes first and becomes is he late. Summing up what we've learnt in this video. In the present simple, the form of the verb is the infinitive without to. Beware of the exceptions, which are the verbs to be and to have, and also remember the shit happens rule. When do we use the present simple? We use the present simple when something happens regularly, never and always, when something is a habit, or when describing a fact. In the case of negatives and questions, regular verbs use the verb do or does, and the verb to be uses not for negatives and inversions for questions. An important tip to help you recognize when to use the present simple are these following signal words: always, never, often, sometimes, seldom, every Tuesday, every year, etc. Anytime something tells you about how often something happens, we know that we need to use the present simple. I hope you found this video useful.